Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Keith Bleyer from Green River College up in Washington. Welcome, Coach.
Matt, good to be here. We're literally on the opposite corners of the United States of America, and soccer brings us together.
That's right. I mean, at least in the lower 48, we couldn't be much farther apart, but luckily, technology helps us do that, right? Well, so Green River is a junior college program up there, and when did you get the position?
I got the position just over a year ago.
Okay.
I had a grand total of 2 players on the Green River College women's soccer team at that point. They had been decimated primarily by COVID, right? There was one full year in which every team in the NWAC, the Northwest Athletic Conference, really good junior college conference up here, was shut down. And, that had a massive impact on a lot of these junior college programs. Green River, I wasn't the coach at the time, opted out of the second year just because they wanted to lean on the side of safety, and they were fully online as a student body, so they didn't feel like athletics fit in. And a couple of the schools in the NWAC, the majority of the schools, quite frankly, played after that first year where they shut down. So when you have a 2-year program, Matt, and you don't play for 2 years, how many players do you think you have? I was lucky to have the 2 that I had. One was a student determined to go to Green River College because it's a very good academic junior college. We call it the Harvard on the Hill, which might be a stretch, but not by much. And then the other player was committed to Green River College and pretty good at track. So she ran cross country, which is a sport that did get back after 1 year of COVID absence. So the first thing I had to do was get my butt out on the recruiting trail as quickly as possible. And I spent, the better part of 8 to 10 months. Thankfully, I have a lot of connections in the club game because I'm a director of coaching for a club up here. And my favorite place in the world is a soccer sideline. So I just brought my little stool, unfolded it, and sat my butt down as many matches as possible, and tried to drum up attention and support. And lo and behold, 23 players came on board. And you're literally catching me on the eve of our very first match in 3 years. We've
Awesome.
got a friendly tomorrow. Yep. And just got off the training ground with the group. They're really excited about it. I have no idea how good we're going to be. None whatsoever.
Well, that's
and
okay.
I honestly, Matt, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't care. At this point, you've got kids who have taken a leap of faith. They've thrown themselves into a program with a new coach, and they're all aboard. And, we're going to be about meeting a standard, not about winning and losing, although they go hand in hand in a lot of instances. But I told the girls when we all got together in our first meeting, I said, this is a 2-year experience that you signed up for. And we're going to take it one step at a time. But tomorrow's a pretty big one. And I will admit to that first training section, when you go from 2 players and then you start tapping shoulders and handing out your card and making phone calls and taking kids on the tour of the campus. And, next thing you know, you got 23. When you roll the balls out on that first day, I got goosebumps, and we're just a tiny little junior college in the east side of Seattle. We're nothing, right? But pretty big deal. So we're excited about what lies ahead, and it'll be a learning experience for me as well as it is for the players.
Well, not to jump too fast forward here, but one of the most difficult things about being a junior college program is you got to reload twice as much as a typical 4-year, right? So moving forward, I guess what is your plan of attack in terms of how you recruit? Are you getting inbound contacts from students? Are you are there tournaments? I mean, obviously you're at DOC, so you're at tournaments kind of anyway. How does it all look in terms of your recruiting process and what it's going to look like moving forward?
Well, it's tricky for me, first of all, because again, I had to bring in 23 players. So what do I do next year, right? Do I bring in another 23? Obviously I don't. I'm committed to keeping a fairly small roster. Some NWAC schools have over 30 players on their roster. My son is part of a Division II college program that's got 30 players on the roster. So when I got to 22 or 23, I decided I needed to stop or else they'd have to reinvent the squad every 2 years, right? So that's something that I've really got to kind of manipulate and navigate. I won't bring in a bunch of players next year. It'll probably be between 7 or 8, and the odds are that 1 or 2 that we have with us will move on after a year. But it is harder. That's one of the things when I reached out before I took the job to a couple of my coaching colleagues. They said, you're constantly recruiting. I mean, you're constantly looking for the next player. But isn't any college coach, I kind of look at it that way. Yeah, you have to hustle a little bit more because it recycles every 2 years. But I think once we reach the tipping point in bringing in this first class, I could then start to target specifically, positionally, what players do we need? Can we be a little bit more creative about what we're doing? I think address one part of it, Matt, is who do we bring into Green River College, right? And anybody who's interested in our program, number one, they want to be in it for the 2-year experience. And let me tell you what the positives are for that. You're going to get on the field right away at a junior college. You may not be a starter right away, but any coach of any ethical level, I believe, needs to get kids on the field in their first year if it's only a 2-year experience. We all know what the reality is. Kids sign up for a big 4-year program, no disrespect, but those kids, some of them don't see the match field until their junior year. That's not the case with us, and it won't be the case even in year 2. So kids want to get on the field right away. Maybe that's what's next best for them academically as well. Kind of that smaller class size and that slower step forward. A kid who wants to commute from home, that's a big deal. We do have an on-campus apartment complex, and 16 of my 23 players are all living together as roommates, which is, I think, fantastic from a bonding perspective. But we've got kids, I would say 80% are from within 40 miles of the campus. And then I've got a couple kids from Vancouver, Washington area, and one from Grants Pass, Oregon, one from Anchorage, Alaska. So it's, I think the longer I'm in the job, the wider I want to cast that net, just because it opens a bigger player pool to you.
And so, again, a lot of folks are, maybe unfamiliar with the junior college process, but when you're recruiting a player, what are some of those specific attributes, whether they're soccer related or off the field related, that are going to be the ones that really help you sign a player versus, the kid who's looking for that, D1 experience and whatnot. So what is it that you're looking for when you're bringing in players?
Good question. And I want to start with what I think is the most important point for any young player looking to play college soccer, or anybody who wants to kind of go behind the scenes a little bit. Just because we are a junior college does not mean you can slide in with any old GPA. Okay. Now the reality is I could bring in a player who has a high school GPA of 2.1, but, not everybody has to be this way, man. I'm not going to waste my time doing that. Because I believe you're probably setting that player up for failure. They may not have enough time management skills. Maybe they need to focus on academics alone. So when I went out, the first question I asked any prospect was, what is your GPA? Now, the beauty of it is it doesn't have to be 3.9. You don't have to be in the top 2% of your class and have, a list of extracurricular activities that rolls off the edge of the table. But you've got to have a GPA of above 3 in my mind, and that was kind of my barometer. So the first thing I did is I wanted to make sure that we were bringing in players that could succeed academically, that have already kind of proven that they're up for the all-encompassing experience that is being a student athlete. Second thing is, and this is what probably gets me more excited, is I get to find the hidden gems. I get to find the players that aren't on ECNL teams. Okay, I get to find the players who do not have 8 12-minute videos on YouTube because their dad has invested in a multi-$1,000 camera by himself and has shot every single game of that child and put together highlights. And listen, you're talking to a soccer dad who has edited highlights for his own kid, right? My kid was ready for the 4-year experience and maybe was playing the game, knew how to play that game aside from the game, which, quite frankly, you're lucky if you are that. So I'm looking for, players that are maybe on the second team at a big club, the top team of a community club. And we even have 2 or 3 players who didn't play a lot of club soccer just because it wasn't available to them in their community. But my goodness, I went and watched them in high school soccer matches, which not a lot of college recruiters go to, the 4-year schools for sure. I would go to high school matches and I would watch. So I get to look for those kind of players. And we got a few of them, and it makes you really excited to watch them blossom. The last piece in terms of the profile for the player that we look for is maybe that player that's missing just that one thing, whatever that one thing might be, and we can develop that. So I'll give you an example. Athletic, competitive, sees the game really well, but wasn't in an environment where they got the technical repetition to the point where they have mastery of the ball, right? So over 2 years, we can help them with that. And I do not believe in those coaches who tell you that a kid, once he turns 13 years old, you can't teach him to trap a ball correctly anymore. I think that's rubbish. Now, there are golden eras and golden ages there where I think you maybe get more advantage or more gain than another. But another example too, Matt, would be a player who maybe has the technical ability like nobody's business, can bring the ball down every single time beautifully, can turn in all kinds of directions, can hit a good pass, sees the game really well, but athletically isn't the standout, and with all due respect to the best club teams I've ever seen and the most successful ones, I've coached a few of them, they got a lot of good athletes on those teams. They can stretch you and they can win that vertical foot races and those things. I've got, half of my team are the players who maybe aren't quite as athletic, but they are darn good soccer players. And we could help them with that athletic piece. And everybody in our program, I ask the first question I ask after, what is your GPA? I say, do you want to play college soccer? Do you want to? What are your goals? We want to push every player who wants to move on to a 4-year school. We want to get them there. But they have to have the desire too, and the reality is that I think it's something like 2 or 3% of kids who play club soccer move on to the college game. So they have to have that desire, and they find out real fast if they've got enough of it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the last question I want to ask you really on the recruiting side of things is, a lot of times it's the money that comes down to it, in terms of parents and kids, and junior college generally is a more affordable option for folks. So what is the overall tuition, financial aid, academic, athletic type of money situation at Green River look like? I'm not holding you to exact dollar amounts here, but just give me a rough idea of what someone will be looking at.
Funny, you asked me that question a year ago. I'd go, I have no idea. Crash course for me.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed it, and I can answer that, pretty comprehensively. The first thing is, yes, most junior colleges are very affordable places to go to school. And the beauty of Green River College, as an example, is you can't play 4 years of college soccer here, but you can get your bachelor's here. We have 4-year programs, and you can get a bachelor's degree for less than $20,000 total. Okay. Right now, our tuition is just over $4,000 the last I checked. And, compare that to the Division III school that's recruiting you that cannot give you any athletic aid, and their tuition is $55,000. Again, I've got all kinds of wonderful colleagues that coach in those programs, and they would tell you that's a hurdle for them. So that's a great selling point for junior college, is that affordability piece. And then we have the apartment complex on campus that isn't that much more. So let's say you're a kid from Bradenton, Florida, and you fall in love with Green River College, and you want to contact me, and you don't have a place to stay. You can get up here and you can go through a full year of college soccer, getting on the field, staying in an apartment complex with teammates, working on an associate's, which is a 2-year degree, or a bachelor's, which is a 4-year degree, and you can do it for about $10,000 a year. Now, that's before we few athletes, or with what we call tuition. So every school is a little bit different, and there are limitations in our conference, the NWAC. But I can give free tuition waivers to each student if I want to. We have a certain amount of those, but there are a lot of our players that are on free tuition waivers. It takes off about $1,000 from their tuition, which, you know, I'm not an expert at math, but I think 1,000 off of 4,000 is 25% right there. And then we have additional athletic aid too. That is of a certain budget every year. And I like to do it, Matt, on a need basis. So we've got kids that can afford the $4,000. It's not going to make them go bankrupt, or their parents, I think, more accurately. But, you know, you have the kids that express to me, you know, I'll give you one example. We have a player whose father is a disabled vet. And so they're a single income family in a pretty small town in Washington, and we're helping them as much as we can. So we don't necessarily do full rides at Green River College, but if you really need it, we can get pretty darn close.
Okay. No, that's great. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the school, you know, the old Harvard on the Hill there. I went to Harvard on the Hocking for grad school there at Ohio University. So I'm familiar
Nice.
with those great slogans.
Are those the Bobcats?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yes. Okay. My other job was sports broadcasting, so I had to know all the college mascots there for a while.
Yep. That's us, the Maction. But anyway, so give me some good insights. I mean, you've already done a little bit, you know, that you have bachelor degree programs there. That's awesome. You know, but what are some of those really great things about your school that maybe I'm not going to find just by clicking around the website?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, you know, just the quality of the education. It's been known for 30 years to be one of the top junior colleges in the area. And sure, every coach is going to get on here and say, you know, we've got a great school, and we've got everything that you need to thrive academically. But it starts with a small class size. I think that's a big deal. You know, my daughter just finished her freshman year at the University of Michigan, and she's got a class of 400 people, right? So you're not going to find that at Green River College. You know, you're going to find smaller classes, you know, that 10 to 12 to at most 30-to-1 ratio, which I think is a big deal. Beautiful campus with all kinds of brand new classrooms, new buildings. And then, yeah, you can get on greenriver.edu and you can look at all the programs that are offered. As I mentioned, I think it's 12 or 13 bachelor's programs. So that's those are the 4 years. And then you have associate degrees, which are the 2-year programs, and they automatically transfer a lot of those directly into some of the 4-year schools. Just a couple programs that are really popular at Green River. Aviation is a big deal. Boeing's around the block, right?
Yep.
So anybody who's interested in aeroscience or having anything to do with aviation, it's a great place to go. Our nursing program is very strong. That's been a popular one with our students. And then we've got a couple fun ones like criminal science. You know, I got one player that tells me I want to be an FBI agent. And this would be the first step for her. But I would also say that, you know, the general education that you receive at a 2-year school is a big deal. It can translate or it can transfer to basically anything you want to do in year 3 and year 4. But I would just encourage students to do their homework, right? And let's be real. I've had players I would have loved to have join us, and they've said to me, well, but I want to study this. And I look at our list and I say, ultimately, we don't have that exact discipline for you. So maybe consider something else. And we've lost players because of that. And that's okay, because you want them to be somewhere where the academic experience is just as important as the athletic one. Can you, as a player, picture yourself at that school without soccer? If you can picture yourself at that school without soccer, then that's a place you should strongly consider.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, so obviously you said tomorrow is the first match there for you, but can you walk me through what a typical week for a player would be during the season in terms of when's practice, when are classes, you know, what else is there that they need to be doing, kind of the whole day in the life of, but let's go for a week.
Yeah, I mean, that gets me excited. You know, what the experience will be for our players. You know, we're just getting through with our preseason, and this just in, preseason is a little bit more intensive than once you get into the rhythm of play. Our kids are walking around funny. The ones that didn't do the preseason work, the preseason work, are the ones who are walking a little bit stiffer than the others. But yeah, we're fortunate, number one, in that we have a soccer complex that's about 3 miles from campus. One day we're going to have our own field, but we have, you know, kind of right of first refusal with that location, and so we get to train when we want to. It's hard. A lot of junior colleges will train at 5:30, 6:30, 7 p.m. at night for a couple reasons. One, they can't get on the field until then, right? Or two, their coach is not a full-time employee and has that 9-to-5 job. I'm lucky in that, you know, my other soccer job to allow for me to train in the late morning. So we're lucky. We train basically at 11 every morning here in the preseason for about a month, 5 to 6 weeks. And then the student athletes have the rest of the day to do what they need to do, rather than wait around all day, eat the wrong food, and come to training exhausted, right? So that's kind of our training time. During the preseason, obviously, we do what we call pass sessions, which are plyometrics and aerobics and speed and strength. We'll do some stuff in we have a brand new athletic center called the Rack. Try not to do 2-a-days very much, so we just did it for the first week. So to kind of answer, I think, you know, the question about the rhythm of the season, we have 23 games. We could play as many as 27. We basically play on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So once the season gets started, you can't do a lot of training, at least not heavy load, intensive stuff. So basically the way it works is Monday's a re-entry day. We'll have a training. Tuesday will probably be a heavier day, but you can't go too crazy or too hard because you've got a match on Wednesday night. Thursday's recovery. Friday you try to get going again, and then you play again Saturday. It's that simple, and it goes. I think we have one open Wednesday starting next week. What I like about what we do is two things. One, our classes don't start until late September. So these kids get to focus on soccer for 6 to 7 weeks.
Wow.
And becoming good teammates, which is really important to us. Making friends, developing relationships. Now, when those classes start on September 19th and we're in the heat of our season, yikes, that's when it gets tough for them. Yeah, you got to ride kind of that wave. How much can we do on one day? Got to peak, and now we've got to recover, and now we've got to peak again, and it never stops. Starting tomorrow.
Yeah, well, that's you're the first person I've talked to that has that nice extra time there in August and September. Right? You know, everybody else, it's like starting. You just drink it from a fire hose because you got to start so early.
Yeah, and I remember it. I went to Santa Clara University. I played there way back in the Jurassic era when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and I think we had 10 days. But what an important 10 days those are.
Yeah.
You get on campus early, you immediately get a support system in place with these new teammates. You get to walk around the campus so that when all the other freshmen show up, you know where you're going. But it comes hard and fast, and there's that management piece. We are very lucky that we've got, I mean, shoot, we're actually more than halfway through our season before the kids go to their first class.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, let's talk a little bit more, about the soccer side of things. So, obviously, you've only been there a year, but is it just you? Is there other staff? Does the athletic department have any kind of other support staff that kind of help out?
Yeah. First thing is I'm very lucky. Our athletic director, who's fairly new to Green River College and has really reinvented and re-energized the entire program. Her name is Shannon Purcell, and she's a soccer person. Really, really nice to have a soccer person in the big chair. She was a former Division I assistant coach, a player to a professional level. So she's as excited about what we're doing as I am. That helped. And then she, obviously gave me the keys to the car and said, number one, go out and recruit players, but number two, think about what you want to do with your staff. So I have a lead assistant, and what a small world it is. Her husband, Sean Purcell, is my assistant coach, and he went to Santa Clara University came in 2 years after, or I think it's actually 3 or 4 years after I did. And he's got a wealth of experience. He's coached at the Division I level as well. I've also got a couple volunteer assistants, and those are great opportunities for, less experienced coaches perhaps, or coaches from the club game or interested in the college game. So they help us out as well. And then really happy to have a goalkeeping coach, which is pretty rare at the junior college level. Recently graduated from a Division III school here locally, Pacific Lutheran University. Her name's Natalie Robinson, and she works with our 3 goalkeepers on a weekly basis. So we've got a good staff, and the one thing that I've learned at the college level is, if it's constantly you, blah, 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 they'll tune you out, right? I think that's with any program, any team. So to give those coaches a little ownership at times, I think is going to be really important. Plus, I can focus on the bigger picture stuff, and these assistants then can really, what I call coaching the flow, and get to those individual moments with players and say, hey, you know how we were talking about switching the point of attack? If you improve your angle here, we can get out a little bit quicker, and those kind of things. So yeah, it's a good crew we've got.
No, that's awesome. Well, you mentioned a little bit, but how would you describe kind of your style of coaching and the style of play you're trying to have the team implement this year?
Yeah. Thought a lot about it, and I've been doing this a long time. I've been in coaching for almost 30 years now. And most of it has been in the club game. And I'm big on the educational piece and constantly staying contemporary, if you will. So I took the old USA soccer license way back when you actually did more playing than coaching to earn the badge. And then I took the new A coaching license about 4 years ago at the National Development Center in Kansas City. Very different experience. So first of all, learning as much about the game as you can, because you should have strong ideas as to how you want your team to play and what your leadership style will be. But you can learn so much if you have kind of a growth mindset as a coach. So that's the first thing. And I keep telling the players, we might change things in terms of what we do, especially since this is year one. But there are a few things, obviously, when it comes to, how you want to operate as a coach. I believe in more positive than negative. And I think a lot of coaches say that. And then if you actually put a camera on them, or, you recorded what they were saying throughout the 90 minutes of a training session or a match, you would find that four or five things are negative or critical or corrective, and 1 or 2 are positive. Can we flip that on its head a little bit? So I try to do that. Secondly, you want to release the game to the players a little bit. So even though there are moments where I'm very clear as to what we want to do, they have to have that, that time of discovery on their own, where again, you release it to them, they solve problems, because you're not going to be able to call a timeout 20 minutes into a game, and every player on the field has got to be a coach as well. And then I think the last thing that springs to mind, Matt, is, and it might be the death of me, but I like to play beautiful soccer. Okay. And I could name names of programs and games and, systems of play that I've seen at the college level that are not attractive, that emphasize nothing but the physical and vertical play. And it's made the best athlete win. I've fallen in love with collective team soccer. So, the pass is the king. That's a big thing for me. We're going to try to move the ball as quickly as we can. And teams that I've coached for the last 10 years have done that, maybe even a little bit longer. Sharing it, defending as a group, being aggressive in what you do, but also manipulating the tempo of the match a little bit by moving that ball with that passing game. That way you can get forward in numbers. I mean, I could go on and on about it, but I won't, because I'm sure you've got some other questions. It's a commitment to that too. It takes bravery, real bravery. And if we go out tomorrow and our beautiful brand of soccer leads to a 5-0 defeat, do I quit on it? And that's a question for you. That's a question for our players. And for me, the answer is no. We'll be pragmatic, but the best teams that I've coached have made this breakthrough. It's really hard to stick to it. You make a breakthrough, and now all of a sudden you can control the match. And we talk about controlling the match for as much as possible. And the one way to control it is to have the ball.
Yeah, that's what I tell my daughter's team a lot. It's like, it's really hard for their team to score when you keep the ball, you know?
Yep. Yep. And you know, but it's also really hard to keep the ball when that team is high press,
Yep.
high press,
Yep.
high press. They come at you 100 miles an hour. Well, what are the answers to those questions, right? The quicker you can make two passes, we talk about that a lot. Making another negative pass to invite that pressure and play around it. You also have to be good technically. So, you know, if you're not regularly working the ball along the ground in training, opposed and unopposed, and then you think that's going to work on a match day, you're kidding yourself, right? And you just have to stick to it. It takes real commitment. You know, we have 3 core values at Green River College, and you know, it's corny, but it works. It's GRC, right? The first one's grit. We want tough players, and I think junior college players are generally gritty players. Respect is the other one. So that's respect for the game and everything that we're doing and what you represent, being much more than just yourself. But that third thing is the commitment thing. And commitment isn't just showing up for training. Commitment is our identity, who we want to be, the kind of soccer we want to play, even when it's hard. Get back to me in 2 months, but
yeah, well,
that's the idea.
Well, look, you know, we've talked a lot, we've covered a lot of ground, and I really appreciate the time you've given me. So I like to end these kind of all with the same question, and that's what didn't we talk about? What did we miss? What else do you want to tell us, whether it's about the school, about the team, about the recruiting process, about soccer, or anything else?
I thought you were going to ask me what I was ordering for lunch at Panera here. I'll wait until we're done to walk over. I feel bad using their Wi-Fi between training sessions without at least ordering a cookie or something.
I mean, well, their broccoli and cheese soup would be tops on my list, but hey, that's all right.
And that's not not a bad shout. Gosh, anything that you forgot? No, I would say that soccer is a beautiful and simple game that we as coaches and sometimes players, and yes, sometimes, you know, the administrators and the people around it, sometimes we can make it difficult. It is a game. That's the first thing. You're playing a game. Make it fun. Enjoy yourself. Be a little bit nervous, but not a lot nervous. Don't feel extrinsic pressure. The only pressure you should place on yourself is intrinsic. Anybody who's watching this, I guarantee you, wants to become a better soccer player, wants to get to the next level. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. You know, and I would say do it for the joy of it. You know, there are days that are tougher than others, but you're out there to enjoy yourself. And if you can't have one moment where there's a big smile across your face, then, you know, maybe examine why that is. That would be, I think, the thing I would say. And then lastly, you know, what you're doing is phenomenal. Really appreciate it. I'm sure that you don't live on a mansion in a hill because of discovercollegesoccer.com. Okay. Maybe you do. Hey, I don't know.
Well, no, my wife just
online things.
Yeah, my wife just wonders.
You're a famous YouTuber.
Yeah, I if the P&L on this ever gets in the black, that'll be a banner day. Let's just put it that way.
No, just keep doing what you're doing, and I appreciate the time. And I hope a lot of people get all the coaches that you talk to. I think, you know, you can kind of scroll through what you've done, and you can pick out great examples. I know half of the coaches that you've talked to, and I'm sure you get something slightly different from all of them, but there's got to be a through line, right? There's got to be something consistent that I'm sure you're hearing and that kids and other coaches can take away from.
Well, and that's really the goal. I think, you know, everybody thinks maybe they've talked to one coach or they've talked to their club coach and they've heard one bit of information, and, you know, the soccer world is small. I feel like it's 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon, not 6 or 7. But you need to diversify your information sources, if you will, especially when it comes to all the different divisions, all the different geographies, the girls' side is different from the boys' side, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
information there. And
Well,
just
Matt, just on that
yeah,
quickly,
sure.
number one, keep an open mind when it comes to the recruiting process. Okay. And I can give you some specific examples, but number one, Santa Clara University, and when I was there, we were very good. I had no idea what Santa Clara University was in 1987 when Mitch Murray, the assistant coach, showed up and sat down at my kitchen table. Had no idea. And this was, I think, spring of my senior year. My son, he's at a Division II school in Colorado, and he went on a bunch of recruiting visits, and MSU Denver popped in at the very end, and he's happy there. Also, players, just because you have your dream set on Division I, that may not be the right place for you. All right. A Division III school might be your academic dream school, but it may not have the soccer program that you have. So keep all options open, and as I run the college placement program for the club around the corner here, I ask players to give me a list of 30 schools, and at least 10 of them have to be Division I, at least 10 have to be Division II, and the other 10 to be Division III and junior college and NAI or some mix of that. So keep an open mind when you go through the process.
No, and that's what I tell parents who ask me. I say the same thing. I mean, I switched. I had my deposit into a Division I school, and I probably, I wasn't recruited to play there, but I was like the preferred walk-on status, whatever you want to call it.
Right?
And
Yeah.
so, who knows? I probably, if I would have made it, not whatever. But I switched last minute to Division III because I wanted to be in a big city. I wanted the academics they had, and I knew I could play 4 years, not just be on the team for 4 years.
Right.
And it was one of the best decision I ever made. And I wouldn't change anything else. And I think stats came out. I saw today via Twitter that roughly half of the kids who entered the transfer portal didn't find a new school. So it really is important that I think kids find where they want to be for 4 years and not just chase where they think they want to be because it's a big name. And then after a year find out, ooh, this isn't what I want. So
Yep.
those are sobering statistics, I think, at this point. And so many people don't realize, you got to find what's right for you. Right.
Yeah. And, again, there's no clear shot.
Yep.
You're going to bounce around a little bit. Right.
Yep.
And I guarantee you that, whatever soccer path you end up taking, mine included as a player and as a coach too, as I think back, it was not what I planned, but it's been great.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's just all about, enjoying the sport together with a group of people.
Enjoy the journey and the destination. Right.
Yep.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate the time. Wish you the best of luck in this first full season for you. We'll check back in and see how you guys do. And if you ever do make it down to IMG or Bradenton on the other side of the U.S., give me a shout. All right.
That'll be a long road trip for the Green River Gators, but we'll make it someday.
All
We're
right.
coming your way.
Love it.
All right.
All
I'll go
right.
get my soup now.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Take care.
Okay.